What's up, YouTube? This is a 2015 KLX110 KTM65 suspension. Suspension's off of 2015. I'm making this video because I basically was able to find nothing online about doing this conversion. There's one guy on there who's got a video. He just basically shows he has it from 10 years ago. So I'm going to go through everything you need to do in order to get your bike converted to having the KTM65 suspension, as far as where you order the bearings, what you have to do to the swing arm, who I used for shocks, springs, and yeah, that's basically it. I also have to upgrade the springs right here. I use this company, K&J Racing Solutions. They're out of Louisiana. The guy was the man. I called him to ask a few questions. I ended up on the phone for like an hour with the guy, so I'll link his website below. This is just so you can see. This suspension's also off a 2015 KTM65 SX. I got the whole KTM for 300 bucks. The transmission was smoked out of it. So all you need up front is a Pax Racing bearing kit. I think it's $99. You punch out these old bearings. You can convert the whole front end right over. The one thing I will say is the bottom race is extremely hard to get out without a bearing puller. I had to grind mine with a Dremel, which you got to be careful because you don't want to mess up the tube if you're going to do that. But these are factory Kawasaki plastics. You can only get 2 bolts, the 2 rear bolts in. I did order KTM front plastics, but I ended up returning them because these already have graphics and they work so well. As far as the rear suspension goes, this is where all the fabrication comes in. If you don't have fabrication experience, and I say I do lightly because some of these welds are ground and painted. They weren't the prettiest thing. But this swing arm is not wide enough to fit on a KLX from the factory. So what you have to do, I cut this cross member completely out of the original KTM swing arm. And you kind of just are mocking it up on the bike and seeing what works, but you have to be careful because the rear tire from the factory is offset on the KLX. So you have to maintain that your chain stays straight, which when you grind these spacers down a little, you can get that. But yeah, you're supposed to cut the front. These little tubes where your bushings go, those have to be angled in because when you widen the swing arm, it kicks those out and they're no longer straight. And then what I did was I just got the same size square stock that was initially in here. And I made new ears, welded them inside and out. And the shock goes in nice. And I'm going to be upgrading the shocks today, so I'll get a video of the upper shock mount I made, but it's super easy. So yeah, if you have a little bit of fabrication skill, I would say do this because you go to hydraulic brakes front and rear, which is hard to beat. You get the inverted front forks. And just KTM makes great parts, so, you know, it kind of takes it to the next level as far as bikes go without having to run a Pitster or, you know, one of the knockoff brands. But yeah, so that'll be a video today. Gonna go ahead and get all this installed and see if we can do it right. All right, so starting with the rear shock. Get all the suspension out and get it on the table, and we'll go from there. If you don't have one of these, buy one. Thrill Seeker's gripper seat. Actually, you know what? I can get it up. Let me do this. So, get the light. This is the upper shock mount that I made for the KTM shock. You know, tried to not reinvent the wheel here. Just use some pretty thick gauge flat stock and kind of used the frame in a gusset sense, and holds up pretty strong. And you know, if you ever want to return the bike back to stock, you just do a couple snips here and still retain your upper shock mount for all the Kawasaki stuff. So yeah, pretty simple if you have a little bit of fabricating skills. Maybe even if you don't. Just get a Harbor Freight welder. Alright, there's one more direct in the front. I do want to block this. So you get that little factory shock out. All right, we're gonna tackle these front forks next. That guy from K&J Racing, Kevin, when I was talking to him on the phone, gave me some pretty good tips. He said, when you're obviously gonna take it all apart, get these forks completely out of the bike and bench them, you know? But he said, leave the lower triple clamp tight, crack the pinch bolt on the upper triple clamp, and loosen this cap while it's still pinched by the lower triple clamp. That way it's not, you're not putting it in a vise and marring it up. So we're gonna go ahead and get that started. Where's the 10 right now? Probably do this with a little bit bigger of a ratchet. I like to make things harder myself. Put those back in because you know I'll never remember what went there. I have brand new lower fork guards for this too, so these don't make me trash. Same thing, I'm putting all these bolts back in before I completely forget where they go. And if anybody out there actually does watch this, I'm not claiming to be a mechanic, so. Yeah. see if Mr. Kevin was telling us. Mostly everything on these bikes seems to be like 8mm, 10mm. I think the front axle and the cap for the 4 tubes is 17. I'll set it back, these flatheads all the way around. The KTM donor bike that I bought. I don't know what that kid did to the poor thing, but he beat the lift off it. So, any part that I'm keeping, I'm going to just try my best to replace. The internal and all that. In fact, one of those gets straight right out. The highest setting in this one. Here. Alright, we go back. Alright, something over here. See if it works. It's a good trick. Thank you, Kevin. Now we should be good to pop the fork right out of this one. Right, so time to rebuild the rear shock. And by rebuild, I mean we're going to replace the spring. You gotta back your jam nut all the way off. This is a cool little tool, spanner wrench from Pax Racing. If you don't have that, you can use one of these or a crappy flathead screwdriver. But imagine trying to do that with a screwdriver. I'd just spend a few bucks and get a spanner wrench. Maybe if they make an adjustable or multiple sizes, because I had to bend this in the vise to make it work. I think it's designed for bigger bikes. Let's see. So I wouldn't go crazy backing them off. I would just hand tighten them. Next step will be slide your bump stop, sorry. And then right here, you have a flat spot, an opening in the washer up top. So what I saw online is if you pull the spring towards you, and you put that there, get it like that, and you pop it right off. Slide the old spring off. I'm gonna clean that up a little bit. Just clean up where that this washer seats. Trying not to hit this stem here. Like I said, I'm a recovering hack, so I'm trying to do things right, but sometimes you gotta do it. Clean this surface as well. Kind of give you what it looks like. On the inside where the top of the shock makes contact. Good enough for me. All right. I don't believe there's up or down on this. Oh yeah, 6.6. think if it had writing, I'd probably want to put the writing towards the top here, but I have the shock mounted upside down and it doesn't have writing, so I don't think it matters. So, oh, table's rolling already. Oh boy. Had to throw it apart. Let's see. All right, same thing. It's kind of the step we stopped at when we were taking it off. I'll put some pressure on the spring. And boom. She's seated. Not sure if it matters. I'm not going to put it like that. I'm going to put it so that opening sits on one nice flat piece of that spring. And the next step would just be to tighten down these two nuts and set your preload or your sag. I don't know what, I looked online, I couldn't find anything as far as setting a sag correctly. I do know that some of the KTMs have a sag line on the fender. You would set it that way, but this is not even on the bike it came from, so we'll adjust this to the eye. They say the eye doesn't lie, so I'm going with that. Just clean up where that this washer seats. Trying not to hit this stem here. Like I said, I'm a recovering hack, so I'm trying to do things right, but sometimes you gotta do it. And we'll just clean this surface as well. Kind of give you what it looks like. On the inside where the top of the shock makes contact. Good enough for me. All right. I don't believe there's up or down on this. Oh yeah, 6.6. I think if it had writing, I'd probably want to put the writing towards the top here, but I have the shock mounted upside down and it doesn't have writing, so I don't think it matters. So, oh, table's rolling already. Oh boy. Had to throw it apart. Let's see. All right, same thing. It's kind of the step we stopped at when we were taking it off. I'll put some pressure on the spring. And boom. She's seated. Not sure if it matters. I'm not going to put it like that. I'm going to put it so that opening sits on one nice flat piece of that spring. And the next step would just be to tighten down these 2 nuts and set your preload or your sag. I don't know what, I looked online, I couldn't find anything as far as setting a sag correctly. I do know that some of the KTMs have a sag line on the fender. You would set it that way, but this is not even on the bike it came from, so we'll adjust this to the eye. They say the eye doesn't lie, so I'm going with that. Alright, we'll skip this part. Alright, so that is reassembled. Actually, as you ride it, I'm sure this bump stop would go back down, but we'll just push it for the video. Yeah, like I said, I'm not too sure about setting the sag or the preload. I just tried to go halfway, about halfway with the threads. We'll put it on the bike and see how it works. I believe it's basically just so that the shock has or the spring has something on it, rather than just shock loading it. But yeah, that's about as simple as it gets. So I'm not gonna really have like a before and after as far as riding it, but as you can see, just little palm pressure. The thing's soft, definitely not good for an adult. All right, got this in a vise. I don't have it, it's not really like tight or anything. I don't want to crush this outer fork tube. I did wrap it in just a microfiber just so it doesn't leave any marks. This is where that tip from Kevin from K&J comes in handy, because you can imagine if you had this thing pinched in the vise and you're trying to crack this cap, not be good for this outer fork tube. So just come off nice and easy. And you can open this up. You're going to have, let's see what size that is. Got a little like a jam nut on the back of this. No way it's the same size, right? It's bigger. So 19 seems to fit on that jam nut. Just want to crack it. There we go. Back that nut off. And you spin this cap. All right, cap comes off. Put all this over here. Take that jam nut off. And we gotta try to get these fork seals down, and they're actually in good shape, so I don't plan on replacing them. I was going to, but nobody had them in stock, and I'm pretty impatient, to be honest. So let's go ahead and get a pick. That spring off. Just pick around the edge of this. If you get your pick in there, you can just kind of work it down without destroying Yeah, this is the wiper seal, I think it's called, sweeper. Like I said, nice and loose so you can spin it in the vise and not mar anything up. Should be wide enough for a traditional flathead. And there you go. Now we have to get, there's a little retainer in here. Might actually be able to get that started with a pick. Yeah. Yep, so if you can just kind of get your pick behind it, pop that out, and there's one more seal in there. So I had to stop and Google it. This inside fork seal is giving me some trouble. So we're gonna try and do something here. Here we go. What you didn't see is this comes out on top here. See if I can get it. Comes out like that. So those holes face the bottom of the fork. Now this right here, we have to crack this loose. So hopefully Harbor Freight got me. Right here I went and bought this adjustable pin wrench. From everything I see online, it does not look like an easy task. So oil all over my hands. Tighten this and that, and I'll be doing none of that. I'm just going to pray that this works. And of course it didn't, so that's good. So I wouldn't buy the wrench from Harbor Freight. That thing is a piece of junk. Pull that out. We had to do some non-traditional things to get that off, but we made it work. Put that there. Out comes our old spring. Yeah, look at those. Those things are pretty flimsy. So that's nice. Get rid of them. Right in the bin. So there's no hole on the bottom of this. So what we're gonna have to do is just let it drip, but let me try to get you a view. So, see that color? Fork oil is not supposed to be that color. It's supposed to be clear-ish, I mean. It's not a perfect world, but. All right, and this is saying it calls for 8.1 fluid ounces. I got this handy dandy paint cup. There's our ton weight. we are gonna go with roughly 8.1 fluid ounces per fork. Okay, you see that color? That's what fork oil is supposed to look like. It's a rough 0.1 weight right there. All right, got these cleaned out as best we could, you know. Put in our 8.1 fluid ounces. Go ahead and take our new fork spring. Going to try to place it in there if we can. Then we have our cleaned assembly here. Same thing. Sits right on top of the fork. All right. Forks back together, cleaned out. All right, we can start reassembling our fork seals. Oh, that little guy. With that. With that. This cap back on. All right. Now we got all our fork seals on. We can slide the fork tube over. You could try to anyways. But I must not have that seated right. Try that. What am I missing? It might be tapered. Maybe I put it on upside down. Oh boy. So I'm not sure what that is, but apparently that might be tapered. So you're doing yours, make sure you look for that. All right, forks back together. I was having some trouble trying to film. This is not, if it's your first time doing this and you don't have all the right tools, that is definitely harder than fabricating the rear swing arm. So just so you know, but yeah, same thing. Just put it back together like you took it apart. The only other thing I will say is from the factory, these clickers, not that these ones make much of a clicking noise, but they say to turn it all the way in until it stops. So all the way in until it stops. And then you want to do 2 full rotations. So that's 1. That's 2. that basically puts the clicker flush with the top of the cap. So yeah, I'm not going to video the other fork. I'll video the reassembly of the bike. But yeah, that is essentially how you upgrade the springs in your front forks. All right, hard fought battle, but we got a set of upgraded forks and a upgraded shock. This Harbor Freight wrench, 10 out of 10, do not recommend. Doesn't really work very good. It actually worked better to tighten them than it did to loosen them, but all right, get this thing put back together hopefully. Fully upgraded KTM65 suspension on a KLX110. So as you can see, this rear swing arm looks a little long, kind of looks almost like one of them mountain climbing bikes. I did not shorten it. I didn't think it was necessary. I still don't. Kind of like the way it looks. It might burn me on doing wheelies, which I don't love, but yeah, overall, pretty pumped with how it came out. Let's see how it holds up with me on it. Oh, it's much tighter. Yeah. Gotta loosen that chain. Yeah, right. It's pretty good. That's the video. Next video is going to be master cylinder on the front, master cylinder on the rear, and let's see. I need to break the old MIG welder out. You can see I already routed the brake line. I have the over-the-top SICK 110 brake lever from the old setup, so I need to mount this. So I might make a mount that comes off the frame here, but we will see. That's for a different video.